It's the 17th Euros kicking off on June 14th this Friday in Germany with 24 teams looking to be crowned the kings of Europe. Now, I'm going to get into some game previews for match day 1 later in this week, but this video, I'm going to cover the odds for some of the top contenders to win Euro 2024. I'll look at the top 10 teams, make my prediction for the final, for who lifts the trophy on July 14th. I've also come up with one futures parlay, grouping together some group winners and teams to advance or not to advance to the knockout rounds. Now let's get into it, and if you want more Euros content, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to get more soccer content all summer long. So without further ado, let's get into some of the top contenders to win this year's Euros. There's 24 teams, but the Euros, you rarely see a massive underdog winning these types of tournaments, with just Denmark and Greece really the only true long shots to ever win this tournament, and those wins came quite some time ago. And you're going to be hard-pressed to find too many people making predictions for the Euros who are picking a team outside of the top 5 favorites. Now, who are those top 5 favorites? Well, if we look at the odds at Bet365 or almost any book, you'll see the top 5 being England being favored here at plus 350 odds, France plus 400, Germany plus 550, Portugal 700 plus 700, Spain plus 750 just behind them. But for argument's sake, certainly there's other teams that certainly stand a chance as well. So let's include the top 10 here. So if we go a little bit further down, we have the reigning champions, Italy, plus 1,400, then Belgium, plus 1,600, Netherlands, plus 1,600 as well, and Croatia and Denmark, plus both coming in at plus 4,000, that being 40-1 odds. So let's look at the overall favorites for this tournament, that being England at plus 350. Favorites, they don't come in though on a high note. They had just one shot on target versus Iceland, the 72nd ranked nation, at Wembley last week, and they lost 1-0 in a friendly. Now that game didn't matter. Jude Bellingham doesn't even play, but it's still concerning for a team that often fails to impress in major tournaments. Harry Maguire is out. Lewis Dunk missed the last game. Luke Shaw may not recover from a hamstring injury during the EPL in time. And John Stones had to be subbed out with an injury in that Iceland game, though he should be okay. Still, that's a lot of defensive questions for Gareth Southgate and England coming into this tournament. But defensive questions aside, England is loaded up top with the likes of Bellingham, Harry Kane, Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka, Ivan Toney, Jared Bowen, Ollie Watkins, and many others. Only Kylian Mbappe has equaled the 12 goals combined that Harry Kane has over the last 3 major tournaments, that being the World Cup, the Euros, and another World Cup. Now, Southgate has a worrisome trend to reverse here in these Euros, and that's his record versus teams ranked inside the top 10. He has a poor record of 7, 6, and 10 win, draws, and losses. Certainly, you'd expect England to go far and maybe win. They certainly could, but then again, they've not won a major tournament since 1966. Let's move on to second favorites in this tournament, France at 4-1 odds. Les Bleus haven't had many slip-ups in the past couple of years. They lost to Tunisia in the group stage at the World Cup, but it came after winning the first 2 matches of the group stage as well. It was then a march to the finals where they came up just short to Messi and Argentina in PKs in that final. Since that time, in 14 games, it's been 10 wins, with their only losses coming to Germany in friendlies, 2-1 and 2-0, a 2-2 draw with Greece, and a 0-0 draw with Canada are their other results in that time. That 0-0 draw to Canada being very recent in their last game on Sunday. Didier Deschamps has been in charge of Les Bleus for 6 tournaments now, and during that time, he's brought them to 2 World Cup finals with a win in 2018 and also a Euros final as well, with Mbappe, Antoine Griezmann, Olivier Giroud, Ousmane Dembele, Aurélien Tchouameni, Adrien Rabiot, Ferland Mendy, Benjamin Pavard, and others, just to name a few. This is a loaded French roster with players coming from the likes of PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, AC Milan, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Marseille, Monaco, Liverpool, Barcelona, and many other top teams around the world. This is a loaded roster, certainly expected to make a deep run, and certainly fair value to be one of the top favorites here. Next, it's the hosts, Germany, plus 550. The home soil certainly gives them an advantage, but can you trust a team that couldn't get out of the group stage in the 2022 World Cup and lost in the round of 16 to the last Euros? They have been a hard team to trust and have been letting down their bettors in recent tournaments. Now, in fact, there's some real bad history around Germany here in recent tournaments. The Germans have not won a knockout round game at a major competition, that being the World Cup or the Euros, since going back to 2016. It's also 12 straight games where they've given up a goal, going back all the way to those Euros as well. Now, they may win their group, and they could get past a possible matchup with maybe Denmark in the round of 16 if they finish second in Group C, Denmark. But that still lines up a path that could see them playing Spain, Italy, or maybe even Croatia in the quarterfinals, and maybe Portugal in the semifinals. Certainly would not be an easy path there. Now, this year, we already saw Qatar win the Asian Cup on home soil. So did Ivory Coast, playing at home in the AFCON. So that is a factor that home teams do and possibly could have an advantage here. Though a home nation at the Euros hasn't won since going all the way back to 1984, with France hosting and beating Spain. And a host nation has really only ever won the Euros 3 times in the history of the tournament, so it's not always proven to be successful for the hosts. But if we look at 3 of the past 5 Euros, the home nation has made the finals. England hosting and losing to Italy in 2020/2021. France hosting and losing to Portugal in 2016. And Portugal hosting and losing to Greece in 2004. Now, in 2008, Austria hosted, and in 2012, Ukraine hosted. But it would have been a big upset for those nations to win anyways. So in recent years, when it's been a top nation hosting, they have at least made the finals, but have been unable to win. Let's go on to Portugal here, 7-1 to lift the title. They should coast in their group, as they are the only team in Group E to even be ranked in the top 30 in the FIFA rankings. But their opponents in qualifying were Slovakia, Luxembourg, Iceland, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Liechtenstein. So they had an easy qualifying path, and they look to have managed to get a relatively easy group here as well coming into this tournament. Now, they are in one of the 2 easiest looking groups, and they have one of the best paths to go deep in the group and in the tournament as well if they do finish first. If they top Group E, Portugal, they'll play a 3rd place team in the round of 16. If they win that game, they'll then play a 2nd place team in the quarterfinals. And that means they may not play another top ranked team until a potential matchup in the semis. The Portuguese have made the semifinals in 4 of 6 recent Euros, and that trend set up nicely to continue here as well. There's a looming question as to how much star man 39-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo will play, but he did start 9 of 10 qualifying games for the nation this term. The one game that he didn't start, he was suspended, and he did score 10 goals as the all-time Euros scoring leader with 14 goals, and having scored in every Euros tournament he's been in. Certainly, if he's playing and starting, you can always look to bet him as an anytime scorer in the player props. Rounding up the top 5, it's Spain, plus 750. Spain has only lost 2 of their last 22 matches at the Euros. They have 13 wins, 7 draws in that time. But those 2 defeats did come against the likes of Croatia and Italy in the 2016 tournament. And those are teams they'll be facing in the group stage in their group here. Still, they've reached the knockout rounds in 6 of the past 7 Euros. I would expect them to do so again here. But in what way, I'm not sure. First, second, or third, it's tough to say. They look like the likely first place finishers in Group B, but nothing is ever that easy. They certainly have the talent, but they have some young talent and no standout striker, and they do sometimes struggle to score some goals and break teams down. Any of Spain, Croatia, or Italy, I think, could realistically top Group B in this, what's being dubbed the Group of Death. For Spain, if they win, they could meet Germany and then Portugal in the quarterfinals and then the semis. If they come second, it could be England and France in a potential path to the quarters and semis. Now, there's an odd stat that I came across for Spain, and when I talk about them struggling to score sometimes, it's that they've not scored a goal in the Euros from outside of the box since Euro 2000. Their last 50 goals have all been inside the box. Now, I would say this probably comes from their propensity to build up the ball, pass it around, make a ton of passes, and maybe not always have that finishing touch. Proof of this was the 1,000 passes they made against Russia in 2018, and they still managed to lose that game. In PKs, though. However, they did score the 3rd most goals of any team in the qualifying rounds leading up to this tournament, and they had those goals spread out amongst 12 different players, so while they might not have a pure out-and-out striker that's going to load up tons of goals in a game, they do have many different players capable of scoring. There's tons of talent on this team, even without the injured Gavi, though they could start some teenagers, including Barcelona's Lamine Yamal, who will become the youngest player to ever play in the tournament at age 16. Man City's Rodri is a star who's involved in everything they do in the midfield, and Alvaro Morata and Joselu led La Roja in qualifying scoring, but neither can likely take over a game as just a pure out-and-out superstar up top. Spain was the 2023 Nations. They won the 2023 Nations League, but their last major win came in the 2012 Euros. PKs have been their downfall in recent tournaments, as they've been knocked out by Russia, Italy, and Morocco in PKs in each of the last 3 major tournaments. Now let's move into the second tier of contenders with Italy at plus 1,400. Italy came into the 2020 Euros in amazing form and rode that all the way to a semis win over Spain and a finals win over England. They then failed, though, to even qualify for the 2022 World Cup. Now, they'll be looking to become just the second ever team to win back-to-back Euros. En route to winning Euro 2020, Italy went 37 games undefeated. But that streak has since and long ended, and since that time they are 15-9-8. But they have only one defeat in their last 11 games leading into the Euros. That was a 3-1 loss to England in qualifying. Luciano Spalletti, the architect of Napoli's Serie A title last season, gets his first crack at coaching in a major tournament, and he'll be ushering in a new wave of Italian stars like Gianluca Scamacca, the Atalanta man, who scored in each round of the Europa League, except for the final, and he had 6 goals during the Europa League competition for Atalanta. Next, it's Belgium. They come in at plus 1,600, 16-1 odds to win. Now, we've been talking about that golden generation of Belgian talent. It seems like for years in many tournaments, always thinking they have just enough to make it far and maybe win. And while they've had the talent to make deep runs in multiple tournaments, they've continually come up short. And they didn't even make it out of the group stage at the 2022 World Cup. You'd still expect them to win, or at least get out of their group alongside the likes of Slovakia, Ukraine, and Romania. But the window may have closed on this team as far as thinking of them as a team that can lift the trophy. They did coast in qualifying, and Romelu Lukaku did lead all scorers in qualifying with 14 goals in 8 games. So if Belgium makes a run, Lukaku could be in line for potentially a golden boot bet as well. Netherlands come in also with 16-1 odds. The Orange went out in the quarterfinals to eventual winners Argentina in the World Cup in PKs after drawing 2-2. They went out of the round of 16 in the 2020-2021 Euros, losing 2-0 to the Czechs. Playing in Germany will bring back some good memories for the Dutch as they won the competition in Germany back in 1988. But they missed the Euros in 2016. They haven't made the quarters since 2008 and haven't made the semis since 2004. The Dutch will lean on what looks like a strong defensive lineup led by Liverpool's Virgil van Dijk. But they do have some injury-related concerns with Feyenoord's Justin Bijlow in goal, Barcelona's Frankie de Jong in midfield, and Atletico Madrid's Memphis Depay up front, who may all not quite be ready to start the group stage, all dealing with some injuries. Netherlands will be expected to come second behind France in Group D, but you can't count out Austria in that group. They do seem to be on the radar as one of everybody's dark horse teams. So while they do have odds much further down the board, let's just quickly touch on Austria here, who come in with 80-1 odds to win the Euros. Austria has just one loss in 16 games, and that's a 3-2 loss to Belgium. They've scored in 17 straight games, and in their last 5 games, they have a 2-1 win over Germany, a 2-0 win over Slovakia, a 6-1 win over Turkey, 2-1 win over Serbia, and a 1-1 draw with Switzerland. So those teams all are tournament teams, including the host nation. So certainly they've proved themselves of late to be able to go head-to-head with almost anybody. So they do have some value to make a run, the Austrians. Let's get back into the final 2 teams ranked inside the top 10 of the odds, and it's Croatia, 40-1. Croatia may be long shots, but it was just 2 years ago. They were 3rd at World Cup 2022. They were 2nd in 2018 and made the round of 16 in 2020, the 2020 Euros. And that was all under current manager Zlatko Dalic. But then they've not made it past the round of 16 at the Euros since it expanded to 24 teams. Still, this is never a team to underestimate. And a second or maybe even a first place finish, in my opinion, is not out of the realm of possibility in this group of death alongside Spain, Italy, and Albania. I don't think it would be a shock if they did upset the odds and maybe and advance as a first or second place team. It's an aging but experienced roster. It still features the likes of Luka Modric, Ivan Perisic, Andrej Kramaric, Mateo Kovacic, and others. Croatia comes in on a high, having just beaten one of the tournament favorites, Portugal, 2-1 in a friendly last Saturday. If you go back to their 5-3 extra time loss to Spain in the last Euros, since that time, Croatia is 25-7-5. With losses to Austria, Argentina, Spain in PKs, Turkey, and Wales. So their few losses have generally come to some of the better nations in the world. I think an upset pick could be for Croatia to possibly win Group B and make a deep run into this tournament. Denmark also come in at 40-1 odds. Now, having lost to England 2-1 in extra time in the last Euros in the semis, they certainly could be worth a long shot bet. However, they failed to get out of the group stage in Qatar soon after in the World Cup. Rasmus Højlund tied for the Man U lead in goals this season with 10. He also had 7 for his nation, Denmark, during qualifying. He certainly will be a player to watch this tournament. So too will Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who has been getting interest from a ton of big clubs looking to sign him away from Tottenham. Now, if you assume the Danes come second to England in their group and Germany can win their group, it may be a Denmark-Germany round of 16 matchup, which could possibly go either way. Some familiar names may not feature as much in the Euros. Christian Eriksen has been not starting as often, and defenders Simon Kjær and Andreas Christensen have been injured. Now that wraps up the top 10 contenders for Euro 24, plus a little mention of Austria. So now let's take a quick glance at the full bracket here. And if we look at the full bracket here, let's just touch on who I see going through as the top 2 teams from each group. In Group A, I think Germany should advance as the host nation. They certainly could slip up because they have proven to not be too reliable, but they are the clear favorites in this group. Second place in that group, I'm going to go for Hungary. Certainly it could be Switzerland, though, as well. I'm going to pick a lot of probably favorites to move on, so we have to pick a couple longer shots here. Let's go Hungary to finish second, but Switzerland to be third. And if you switched Hungary and Switzerland, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Group B, I'm going to go England, Denmark. Group C, Belgium and Ukraine. Group D, here's a little upset here. Let's go Croatia to win the group, followed by Spain. But certainly Spain could win. And if you threw Italy into one of those top 2 spots, that wouldn't be shocking either. Then in Group E, let's go France and Austria. Again, Netherlands would be favored as the second place team. It would not be a shock if Netherlands was second over Austria, but I think Austria has some potential to upset the odds. And in Group F, Portugal, followed by Turkey. But if you told me the Czechs came second instead of Turkey, that wouldn't be a surprise either. Now, it's hard to pick which 4 of 6 third place teams will move on, as there's just so many tiebreakers and outcomes that could play a factor into how these teams will rank. But I'm going to say Italy, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Czechia as the top 4 third place teams to move on in the bracket as well. So now let's get to who lifts this trophy. Throw all those stats we just mentioned about the contenders together. For my finals pick, I'm going to make a lot of assumptions here. And if you get to the quarters or the semis, there are certainly no easy games. But if you assume France wins Group D, England wins Group C, that is a very likely semifinal matchup on one side of the bracket. And if it's not England, it could be Spain, Italy, or maybe even Croatia, or even the host Germany if they slip up and don't win their group as the team that plays France in a semi, if you think France can make it to the semifinals. If Portugal wins their group on the other side of the bracket, they'll play, like I touched on earlier, a third place team in the round of 16, a second place team in the quarters, and that would set up a possible Portugal versus maybe Germany, or Portugal versus Spain, Italy, or Croatia semifinal. And all of this is assuming there's no major upsets, but that is how it looks like it could be shaping up here. So in that final, I'm going to pick France over Portugal to win Euro 2024. France have made the final in 3 of the past 4 major soccer tournaments, while Portugal have at least reached the semifinals in 4 of the last 6 Euros. Now, if it is France against Portugal, France has a massive all-time head-to-head edge at 19-3-6. These teams drew 2-2 in the last Euros in the group stage in June 2021. And Portugal have only won once versus France in the past 14 meetings. Both teams are loaded with talent, but I will give the edge to the slightly more experienced French team here, the more experienced coach in Didier Deschamps over Roberto Martinez, who was never able to get his old team, Belgium, over the hump. So if France is to win the Euro 2024 title here at Bet365, they are 4-1 odds, which is about what you can find them at most sportsbooks. France over Portugal, if you want to do a straight forecast of first and second, France over Portugal would be 28-1 odds. Portugal to simply reach the final, plus 350 odds. Now, those are just the bets related to my finals prediction, but you can make a whole ton of bets on the Euros, from group winners, group finishers, team points, stage of elimination, most goals, assists, saves, golden boot, golden glove, all of those type of exciting different bets throughout the tournament. And you can often shop around to different sports books and find different odds on different teams if you look around. And if you're looking for a place to do so, why not check out my link from the channel partner, Sign Up Expert and BetStamp. Visit my link at signupexpert.com/shredthespread, and you'll find all the best promotions to take advantage of at the top sports books in your region. You can get risk-free bets, huge deposit match bonuses, and more from all the top books in the industry. So check out that link. I'll leave it down there in the description and the comments of this video as well. Now, one more thing to touch on here before I wrap up this video, and I just talked about some of the different types of bets you can make outside of just who's going to win the trophy. So let's come up with a small parlay for a few different futures outcomes here. 4 different outcomes. Let's start with England to win Group C. That's at minus 250 odds. Anything other than a first place finish in Group C would be a shock. The Danes could be tricky, but I'll still bet on England. Portugal to win Group F. That's minus 225. Portugal is stacked, one of the best rosters in the tournament. Rafael Leao, Bernardo Silva, Diego Jota, Gonzalo Ramos, João Felix, and Pedro Neto. And you can say all of that even without mentioning Ronaldo, who had 10 goals during qualifying, the second most. Those 2 predictions alone, just England and Portugal to win their groups, would be plus 102. That could be enough just by itself. But to bump it up a bit more, I like 2 more outcomes. Let's throw in Ukraine to advance with Slovakia and Romania in Group E. This is the only group with 2 teams ranked lower than 40 in the FIFA rankings, and plus Belgium. The Belgium are favorites in that group, but they have been perennial underachievers as well. Now, Ukraine did need a playoff to get here, but they were behind England and Italy in their qualifying group. There's no shame there. Still, this nation has made 4 straight Euros and reached the quarterfinals in the last Euros, losing to England. Ukraine also have Artem Dovnik in their ranks, who led all scorers in La Liga this season with 24 goals alongside 8 assists to win the Pachichi with Girona this season. And finally, Albania not to advance out of their group. They had an impressive showing in qualifying, topping their group ahead of the Czechs and Poland, and they have 18 goal scorer Ray Manaj from the Turkish Super League, but they are in the group of death alongside Croatia, Italy, and Spain, and it's just their second major international tournament ever. They would be a true shock to come out of this group. They're facing teams that rank 8th, 9th, and 10th in the FIFA rankings. Their XG per 90 in qualifying was just 1.13. That was 36 out of 50 teams in the qualifying. It's also the lowest, only above Georgia's 1.00 among the 24 teams in the tournament. And you can find those type of stats over at a site like Footy Stats. So if we go Albania not to advance, Ukraine to advance, Portugal to win their group, England to win their group, that would come in at plus 239 odds. I've made that over at Bet365, but most books should have those type of props for futures bets either available now or coming out very soon. So we've covered all the favorites, our winning predictions, and some futures to include in a parlay. But what do you like? There's certainly tons of bets you can make in this tournament. Be sure to share your group winners, your outrights, your bets for Golden Boot, Player of the Tournament, and any other Euro 2024 bets that you like for this competition. Help out the channel by giving this video a like, and I hope to see you for more Euros and Copa America content coming up soon this summer.